Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. I have made a lot of videos on this channel over the years, most of them full of razor sharp analysis, critical insight and bitingly accurate commentary on the affordable watch scene. But I'll admit I don't always get it right, and when I don't get it right, I have no problem admitting it. I have made a number of mea culpa videos confessing my sins, owning up to my erroneous opinions and attitudes. And do you know what? Sometimes it's actually quite nice to get it wrong. There have been a couple of times when I've seen a new brand emerge onto the scene and thought, they are not going to make it, and been completely wrong in my assessment. For example, I was wrong about Hertz watches, the small Australian micro brand specialising in quartz. I thought they would fail, but they've done really well for themselves. And I was wrong about Moels & Co. When I first saw their 528 a number of years ago, I thought, what on earth is that and why on earth would anyone buy it? But do you know what? Buy it they did. It's been a really successful watch for the brand, and it has allowed them to launch another successful model, the 369 that I have on my wrist today. Now perhaps I'm missing something because the watch does not have a 3, a 6 or a 9 on the dial. It's far more subtle, it's far less obvious than that. And I think it's a beautiful piece of design. It's modern, yet it's timeless. It has a contemporary elegance to it that is so hard to get right, to really nail down these days. And all from a company that I didn't think was going to make it to Christmas. How wrong I was. Let's flip the camera and have a look at it. And before we even open the box, I got it wrong again today. This video is sponsored by Moels. I forgot to tell you in the intro. We've already had a look at the watch then. Let's talk price. These are 1,150 Great British pounds. Moels are a British company, a member of the British Watchmakers Association. But the watch is shipped from Switzerland. So it says on the website clearly that there may be additional taxes and duties charged if you're in the UK or the EU, and let's not even talk about America at the moment because the information I give you today will probably be quite different from the information that applies when the video is published. We have limited numbers of limited colours of 369 in stock, including some super hot new red ones down at the bottom of the website. If in doubt, I would suggest either signing up for their newsletter or emailing them and asking them about availability. So just north of £1,000, we're definitely a couple of rungs above entry level here today, but I think this one justifies its price no problem at all. Not necessarily through the specifications, it's not a spec monster by any means, it's the design. I think the design is just lovely. Packaging, very much in keeping with the price tag as well, and it is specific to this model. There you are, Moels 369. What else do you get? You get a branded polishing cloth, you get a handwritten thank you from Bettina. Now, Bettina is one of the brand owners. She is the lady who designs the watches themselves, very personable as well. I've been chatting to her by email over the last couple of months. She is a trained architect who turned her hand to watch design, I think, rather successfully. You know I'm not a fan of instruction manuals, but this one is actually quite pleasant. Some stylized, everything's fairly stylized and stylish. Schematics of the watch, nice simple instructions. It's a good one as far as those things go. 3-year warranty, again helping justify the price tag, and you get a little launch edition metal plate. Now, screwdriver. You're only going to be using the screwdriver to take links out. They don't actually supply you with any spare links. The watch is sized as standard for about a 7.5-inch wrist. They are available on request though, so measure your wrist, or you probably know your wrist anyway, but give it a measure. If you are keen on one of these, you can always ask for more. So what are these then? Well, it's an integrated bracelet watch, so these are end-link adapters to change the watch to fit 20mm straps, and they come free as part of the package. Not everyone does that though. Shame on you, Serica, for charging €120. That's 100 quid for those two tiny bits of metal. And if it wasn't obvious enough from the thumbnail, it should be obvious from my consistent love of brightly coloured watches. They sent me the green one, the turtle, and my goodness, it's lovely. Isn't it just? I think that thing looks fantastic. It's a really bright, vibrant shade of Kermit the Frog green, and I always was a big fan of the Muppets. And check the design. I said stylish, stylized, contemporary, elegant, all of those things and more. I think it's really difficult for a brand to come up with an integrated bracelet watch at this stage of market development of integrated bracelet watches and make it their own, and yet Moels have managed that, and no mistake. Lovely brushed, vertical brush surface to that multi-sector dial. You've got those really interesting skeletonized hands. You've got loom blocks, cast loom blocks all the way around the outer edges of the dial. Kind of tonneau case with a cushion bezel fixed on top of it, and the kind of caterpillar track of the integrated bracelet links here. Very, very nice indeed. All right, dimensions and specifications then. Well, one of them might surprise you. Well, two of them might surprise you actually. Diameter won't, it's 39mm. Thickness won't either, it's 12.5. Effective lug to lug of 46.5 today. Lug width, even though it's integrated, I am going to put 20mm because of those adapters. There's a taper down to 18, back up to 20.5 at the clasp. Now, as sized for me, maybe I could take a link or two out. As discussed, they don't send any extras, but that means there's plenty of adjustment in this clasp, as you'll see. It weighs in at 162 grams. That's maybe 10% more than you would necessarily expect from a watch at this diameter. It does give the watch head particularly a really solid feeling though. Crystal is double dome sapphire with anti-reflective undercoating, and it has 200 meters of water resistance. Again, perhaps more you'd expect, perhaps double what you would expect, but at least that is kind of double the sports watch standard. The movement in the back of this one is a Sellita SW200. That is more expected. Now you can't quite see all of it, but you do catch the occasional glimpse of it because it's behind a flat piece of anodized perforated metal, which is in turn behind a piece of flat sapphire crystal. Again, how do you make a design your own? Well, you do multiple things that nobody else is doing. So 369, the model name, and those four kind of curved bars that almost make up a circle, you'll see them replicated in the front, those applied cast loom blocks as noted earlier on. So screw on stainless steel and sapphire case back, 200 meters of water resistance, Swiss caliber, Moels & Co, and Bettina has put her own kind of signature on there, designed by her. And it's a lovely case and bracelet. It's got that slight tonneau shape to the case, and this is something I have seen before, but not all that often, and when it's done well, it's a really nice touch. There's a high polish chamfer running lug tip to lug tip, flowing seamlessly into the edge of the bracelet, expanding a little bit along the clasp, and all the way back around. Very, very nice indeed. Now there's a vertical brush finish to the upper surface of the case itself and also the upper surface of the bezel, but if you have a look at the bezel, again, there's a high polished edge running all the way around, high polish undercut to the base of the case also. Very, very nice. Now, unsigned crown, very minimal branding here, just the Moels logo on one of the spokes, if you will, of the dial. That is, however, replicated on the clasp. Now, the bracelet I did mention, kind of caterpillar tracks, that's what it reminds me of. It's almost kind of reptilian, snake-like in a way, especially with that first end link. Beautifully finished, brush finish upper surface, and we saw the high polish chamfer to the edge. Double trigger pushers on this clasp. Now, it's almost like a glide lock style, so you have to take it off your wrist, pull it that way, but there's heaps of adjustment, which is why I guess they don't give you spare links over a centimetre. Normally you get about a centimetre with this style of clasp, so you should have no problems in getting a decent fit. Alright, dial and hands then. There's not an awful lot going on here, but I think the elements they have used combine very well. So I love that metallic brush. I love the vertical brush on the dial surface itself, and the printing is kind of like a triple sector dial. There's three different sets of crosshairs dividing the main dial surface into a dozen little pizza slices, if you will, a dozen little wedges. And I love the branding, the kind of Moels brand name with their signature font running vertically up the dial from the 6 towards the pinion. I don't think I've ever seen that before either. Printed double train track minute markers, And then beyond them, around the outer edge of the dial, are 12 applied, slightly curved cast loom blocks. Now, they obviously have an effect of adding depth to the dial during the day, but you'll see quite a different effect when I turn the lights off in just a minute or two. Talking of which, the hands, all three hands are loomed as well, painted on the upper surfaces, but they're skeletonized. But despite that, there's considerable contrast between the crisp white hands and the bright green dial. There's more legibility than you would necessarily expect from a watch like this. Interesting that Moels have gone for a lot of colour in their 369 range, as you saw. Maybe there isn't quite enough here to pull off a simple plain black, blue or white dial, but there's more than enough here when you combine it with a shade of green like this one. On wrist, it wears really nicely. It's very comfortable. You saw the polished case back, the sapphire case back, and those little high polish undercuts on the main case. Now, the kind of pumpkin crown here, nice smooth edges, doesn't dig into the back of the wrist at all. But you do notice the weight. You do notice that 160 grams as opposed to perhaps 140, 145, which is more normal for this size and style of watch. Great wrist roll though as well, isn't it? I do like the fact that they've kept the majority of the surfaces brushed rather than polished. There's a couple of polished elements here and there, but yeah, that just tones it down a little bit. And as noted, legibility surprisingly good because of the colour contrast of those white skeletonized hands against the bright green dial. Not all of them are going to be as legible as this one though. Maybe the darker colours obviously contrasting more with the white than some of the lighter colours. So far so good, but it's time for the moans and niggles section. What am I going to complain about? Well, I'm going to complain about the loom. As nice as those little cast loom blocks are around the outer edges of the dial, they do rather show up the hands, or the lack of loom on the hands. It looks okay initially, but even if I fast forward to a minute, you can see the painted loom on the hands is just not going to last. And if I keep fast forwarding, we end up in this slightly bizarre situation where you can see the markers around the outer edge, but you can't see the hands, so you can't tell the time. And if we return to the selections of 369 that are available at the moment, there aren't all that many of them available at the moment. Half are sold out. The rest are in very, very limited quantities. It's the kind of classic dilemma for a small brand, the constant push and pull between levels of demand and levels of stock. And I'm sure there will be some people watching who feel that this watch could have done without those applied cast loom blocks. And, you know, I take that point. I can see that position. There's certainly an argument for removing them, but I'm not sure if the watch would have had quite enough going on if they had been removed. And the bracelet does nip the odd hair, I'll be honest. I've had this one with me in Sydney now for maybe 6 weeks or so, and I have worn it out and about quite a bit, and yeah, I have noticed I have lost a few hairs every time I have worn it. So if you have smooth arms, good for you. If you are particularly hirsute, be warned. And then there's the price tag. Look at that price at just over £1,000 plus import taxes. As I said, we're a couple of rungs above entry level with this one today. I think in terms of the designs, it more than justifies its price tag, but can it hold its own against the competition? I guess that depends what you think the competition is. If you look north, if you think the Moels compares favourably to a Moser Streamliner, then it's a bargain at $1,500 rather than $20,000. If you're looking for something around the grand, you can pick up a Christopher Ward for just over £1,000 and you won't be paying any further import taxes if you're in the UK. I like the Christopher Ward 12, it's got the same movement as the Moels. There are definitely cases for both. Or if you want to spend half the money of the Moels, you can pick up an automatic Tissot PRX. Far more ubiquitous and I think far less stylish than the Moels, but also far cheaper than the Moels. So overall, by no means perfect, but definitely an interesting and stylish left field option if you are late jumping onto the integrated bracelet bandwagon. And let's not forget, this is only the brand's second offering. Both very interesting, both very stylish, and you can see a distinct brand design language forming already. So I may not be wrong very often, but I don't mind at all that I was. So there you have it, not necessarily a dollar dazzler, but one of these watches where if you're prepared to spend a little bit more than a big brand mainstream watch, you are rewarded with a lovely design. It may be twice the price of a Tissot PRX, but it's at least 4 times as beautiful. I am delighted I was wrong, and I look forward to seeing what the brand comes up with next. If you enjoyed seeing me eat humble pie, here's another couple of serves. Thanks for watching this one. I'll see you again in the next one.